When all the doctrine has been debated, when all the traditions have been lived out, when all the hymns have been sung and the liturgies read, we are left with just one thing: love. To love God, to love our neighbour, to love ourselves is the highest calling given to humanity and is the very essence of our faith as Christians. As Jesus said, "I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I've loved you, you also should love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." And when Jesus gave this commandment of love, it wasn't at a random time in his ministry. Jesus gave this teaching the night before he was crucified. It was his final teaching to the disciples before he died. It's almost as if the 3 years of his ministry had been building up to this moment, and he was saying to them, in conclusion, this is what you need to remember. It's all about love. So what does it mean for us to love one another as Jesus has loved us? Well, I think there's 3 main characteristics. Firstly, love is sacrificial. At the very heart of the Christian faith is the fact that Jesus died on the cross. Not some empty, meaningless, failing type of death, but a death that won a victory over the power of sin and death so that we could live in a beautiful relationship with God. That death was sacrificial. Jesus had to give up everything so that we could live. To give up his birthright, his power, his majesty, his glory, his own life. In his letter to the Philippians, Paul had written that Christ emptied himself, taking the form of a slave. There was no limit to Jesus' sacrifice because there was no limit to his love. And so the fact that we love God and love others is a response to that. I wonder what that means in your life and mine. How can we show truly sacrificial love towards others? What can we give of ourselves in order to love better? What does love look like for you? Secondly, love is unconditional. Jesus didn't die for us because we deserved it. Instead, as the Bible tells us, he died for us even when we were far off and lost from God. Jesus didn't set conditions on his love. He never said that we need to do something first in order for him to love us. He never waited until we had proved ourselves worthy of love. Jesus' love was absolutely unconditional. And following Jesus' example, we are called to love others unconditionally too. I think in this day and age, one of the most beautiful and precious gifts we have to offer is gentleness. We need gentle people. We need gentle Christians. We are called to gentleness and non-judgmentalism and a showing of unconditional love to all those we know. After all, that is what God has done for us. He is gentle with us, isn't he? God doesn't bear a grudge or give us a hard time for messing up so regularly. And we should follow in his footsteps by treating others with the same gentleness and patience and kindness as God has shown for us. Thirdly, love is intensely practical. The hospice nurse caring for the dying patient, the mother clearing up her child sick in the middle of the night, the food bank staff listening to a client and providing for their needs, the parents who sacrifice their own dreams for the sake of their children. These are examples of love that is intensely practical. And of course, Jesus' death on the cross was intensely practical. It wasn't a glorious chapter in his life. He was alone. He was in pain. He had to just grit his teeth and get on with it. And that is practical love in action. And we too are called to practical love, to meet the needs of others in pragmatic ways that speak of love and care and compassion. We can't walk by on the other side of the road. We are to meet needs wherever and whenever we can. So Jesus has a new commandment for us: to love sacrificially, unconditionally and practically. That is the life to which we are called. It's not easy, but love must be the hallmark of our church and our own lives. As Paul says in 1 Corinthians, if we don't have love, we're nothing. Our worship is empty. Our hymn singing is empty. All the activities of church are empty and meaningless. It's all about love. And we pray for ourselves that we may increasingly model ourselves after the example of Jesus and fulfill the commandment to love as he loved us.